A slate-colored dawn bled slowly over the Vale of Arryn, light pooling in thin, cold sheets beneath the crags of the Giant's Lance. Mist clung to every switchback of the mountain road, muffling hooves and making breath bloom in silver ghosts that drifted skyward before dying on the frozen air. Brienne of Tarth watched the wraiths rise, felt the ache in her calves from the endless climb, and tightened the strap of her sword belt. Far below, in the depths of the valley, the world looked painted layer upon layer of pale blues and grays. But here the rock was raw, scored by centuries of wind and ice, and Brienne's gauntlets left fleeting prints on rime-slick stone as she pressed onward. Each step carried her nearer to the Eyrie and to Sansa Stark. If Sansa truly was here, if whispered tavern tales and the gut certainty of an oath still meant anything. Brienne's mind drifted to Catelyn Stark's last, desperate command, and to the cold river where that noble lady's body had vanished beneath the murk. "I will find your daughters, my lady." The promise lived in every heartbeat, a rhythm as steady as the pull of muscle against plate. She passed a shepherd's shrine, weather-worn, half-buried beneath shards of fallen slate, and offered a silent prayer to the seven that her strength would hold. Then she pressed on again, through the ice-needle breath of the heights, until the pass widened at last and the gates of the moon rose before her. Stout stone towers crouched against the mountainside, banners drooping heavy with moisture. Lanterns guttered above the portcullis. She hailed the guards in a voice hoarse from cold and climbed the final switchback beneath their wary stare. They admitted her at dawn's pale edge. Within the outer yard, mountain garrons steamed in their stalls, and ash-gray ravens croaked from the rafters of the mews. Brienne presented sealed letters, half-truths penned by Podrick Payne in a spidery hand, to explain her presence. She bore tidings for Lord Baelish from Gulltown. The sigil on the wax was obscure enough to invite confusion rather than scrutiny, and the guards, more concerned with breakfast trenchers and their own chill, waved her on to the lift. The winch groaned and the basket lurched upward, wood complaining beneath her boots as the gates fell away beneath a sheer drop of cloud and cliff. Above, the Eyrie clung to its pinnacle like a gull's nest carved of marble, small and pure against the savage blue. Brienne stared up at it, breath shallow, knuckles white on the railing. 500 feet of nothing but wind and sky. Yet she had endured worse in the storm-lashed seas round Tarth, and fear would not keep her from Sansa Stark. Inside those immaculate halls, floors so pale they might have been born of moonlight rather than stone. Sansa Stark stood before a mirror, feeling the grip of hidden talons in every inch of her borrowed skin. Elaine Stone, bastard daughter of Peter Baelish, smiled back at her in the glass, freckles dusted by cosmetics, auburn hair bound modestly in a net of pearls. The disguise was impeccable, but the girl behind it felt thin, stretched taut like lace over coals. "Breakfast, my lady?" her maid asked, setting a trencher of honey-steeped oats beside a dish of apricots glossed in syrup. Sansa nodded, though the taste of sweet fruit had long since turned to ash on her tongue. Outside the frost-etched window, the veil unfurled in dizzying depths, clouds tumbling beneath parapets. Somewhere down there Catelyn Stark lay in the cold ground of the Trident, and Robb and so many others she dared not name. Yet Sansa breathed still, watched, tutored, guarded, gilded. She thought of Lord Baelish, with his sly smiles and the way his fingers drifted to her elbow or her waist as if by chance. A father's affection, he called it, though Sansa had known true fatherly love once, and Ned Stark's voice had never felt like silk sliding over steel. The thought quickened her pulse. She poured herself a cup of tea but did not drink. That morning Lord Robert was to practice his archery in the snow-kissed garden. Lord Nestor Royce would preside. The Lords Declarant, Bronzeyon Royce, Horton Redfort, Anya Waynwood hovered like falcons, waiting to see which way a Baelish breeze might blow. And Lord Baelish, for all his indolent affectations, guided every current. Sansa's stomach twisted. A knock at her door broke her reverie. It was Ser Shadrich, the Mad Mouse, brown eyes bright with mischief. "My lady," he said, dipping into an exaggerated bow. "The little lord begs your presence. He refuses to loose a single arrow without his sweet cousin beside him." "Tell him I will come directly," Sansa answered. Ser Shadrich lingered in the doorway longer than courtesy required, gaze flicking over her shoulders, perhaps weighing the worth of secrets he alone suspected. Then he was gone, boots echoing in the corridor's hush. Sansa smoothed her skirts and followed. The marble walls gleamed like winter sun on snow. She did not look back, though she thought she felt another pair of eyes upon her. Something watchful and solemn as an oak within a hidden garden. Brienne stood beside Podrick Payne in the High Hall's antechamber, pretending interest in a tapestry of winged knights. Pod's cheeks were pink with windburn, but his eyes were alive, darting over every sconce and pillar. He's grown into his courage, Brienne noted with pride. A squire no longer, but a shield I trust at my back. She'd ordered him to keep quiet and observe, and he did, though the effort cost him visible effort whenever a guard strode past. A herald announced the Lord's Assembly had begun in the solar. Pod touched Brienne's arm and nodded toward a colonnade. "Sansa," he mouthed. Through the arch, a flash of auburn hair vanished down a corridor, flanked by Ser Shadrich. Elaine Stone, Brienne corrected herself, but her heart soared. She would stake her life on that grace of movement, that stubborn lift of chin she had once glimpsed in a storm-tossed river camp. "Wait here," she told Podrick, lowering her voice beneath the hush of cold marble. He opened his mouth, shut it, then nodded once, every inch the dutiful companion. Brienne followed. She moved like a shadow through corridors of white stone, each step measured, mailed fingers brushing the pommel of Oathkeeper. At a junction she paused, listening. Distant laughter, young, high, petulant, and another sound beneath it like silk drawn over parchment. Lord Baelish. Brienne pressed herself into the embrasure of a tall window and peered down the adjoining hallway. Sansa, pale, poised, but with a tremor in her hands, stood beside Robert Arryn at a small indoor butts where a straw target waited. Littlefinger adjusted the boy's stance, soft words flowing like honey. Ser Shadrich lingered at the wall, indifferent. Brienne's jaw tightened. Too many watchers, too many blades. She needed to speak with Sansa privately, draw her from the nest before Lord Baelish scented steel in the wind. But how? She could not simply advance, declare herself, and seize the girl. The Vale Knights would swarm her. She must sow doubt first. She withdrew, heart hammering, and sought the solar where the lords of the Vale gathered. "Oh, the Lady Brienne of Tarth, is it?" drawled Lord Peter, when the knight appeared at the threshold flanked by guards. His smile was thin as spider silk. "I had not expected such renowned company, and bearing letters, I am told. From Gulltown." Brienne bowed stiffly. "From Gulltown, my lord." She advanced into the solar, a circular chamber of blue-veined marble, warmed by braziers. Bronze Yon Royce loomed beside the hearth, granite hewn into a man's shape. Anya Waynwood sat straight-backed, eyes sharp above a half-moon smile. Horton Redfort leaned on his cane, his breath whistling faintly. Brienne's entrance drew every gaze. She felt heat crawl beneath her gorget but forced herself to meet their eyes. "I seek audience with Lord Baelish regarding a matter of misplaced daughters." The word daughters rang through the chamber. Royce's brows nodded. Waynwood's fan stilled. Littlefinger alone kept smiling. "These letters," he said, plucking them from her glove with delicate fingers, "speak of a merchant vessel seized by pirates off the Broken Arm, hardly the sort of news one risks the mountain road to deliver. Unless," he tapped the parchment, "unless the letters are but keys to open other doors." Brienne did not flinch. "I come on behalf of Lady Catelyn Stark. Her daughters were lost in the war. I believe one is here under your protection." "Protection indeed," murmured Waynwood, letting the words hang like frost in air. Royce's gaze flicked to Littlefinger, nose curling. Lord Peter's smile widened a hair. "What a hopeful dream. Alas, the Lady Catelyn is many months dead, and her daughters along with her, by every reliable report." "I have seen Sansa Stark," Brienne said, voice ringing with tempered iron. "I saw her once in the King's Court, and I know her still. She is here, living under the name of Elaine Stone." The solar erupted into overlapping voices. Bronze Yon's baritone cut through first. "Is this true, Lord Baelish? You denied it when we wondered. You swore the girl was yours. Yet here stands a knight of good name saying otherwise. Ser Brienne's service to the late King Renly perhaps clouds her judgment." Littlefinger suggested, gentle as a falling feather. "She sees dead kings in strangers' faces. Why not Stark's?" Brienne took a step forward, plate grieving against marble. "I would stake my honor." "And I would see it weighed," said Royce. "Bring the girl. Perhaps we should not disturb young Robert's lesson." "Bring the girl," Waynwood echoed, steel in her soft voice. Littlefinger's eyes glittered. "As my lord's command." The corridor seemed narrower when he left. Brienne felt the room tilt, expectations shifting toward her like blades. Horton Redfort's cane clicked upon the floor. "Sire," he rasped, "if you be right, you have done the Vale a service. If you be wrong, Lord Baelish will demand recompense." "I have not come to quarrel with lords," Brienne answered. "Only to keep my promise." Bronze Yon grunted. "Promises forged of true steel bear weight even in these high halls. We shall see." Time thickened. Brienne's pulse beat in her ears. She forced herself to stillness, eyes on the arched doorway. Footsteps approached, brisk, echoing. The door swung wide. Sansa entered arm in arm with Lord Baelish. Robert trailed behind, clutching a silver cup. Ser Shadrich watched from the threshold, mouth quirking. For an instant nothing moved. Brienne drank in Sansa's face. The fine-boned cheeks, the blue of her mother's eyes, the ghost of girlhood fear behind the courtesy mask. Recognition flared between them like a struck spark. Sansa's lips parted. Brienne bowed deeply, armor whispering. "My lady." Littlefinger released her arm, fingers lingering half a heartbeat too long. "Elaine, dear, these good lords wish to settle certain doubts." Sansa's gaze flicked to Royce, to Waynwood, to Brienne. "Doubts, my lord? Simple matter of names and blood." Littlefinger's tone was light. "Tell them who you are." "I am Elaine Stone," Sansa said, though the words trembled. Bronze Yon stepped forward, vast as an oak. "Look at me, girl. Did your mother linger in the Eyrie half her life yet leave no record? Did she bear you in secret?" "My mother was a merchant's daughter," Sansa answered, eyes downcast. "Lies rattle like loose coin," Royce pronounced.
"Ser Brienne."
Brienne bowed again. "Speak honest, my lady. These halls hold truth enough to shame every lie Lord Baelish spins." Her voice softened. "I remember Winterfell. I remember you and your sister at the harvest feast. Speak your name." Sansa's breath hitched. She looked at Littlefinger. His expression calm, but a flicker behind his eyes warned of darker things. "Lord Baelish has kept me safe." "Name yourself," Royce said. Tears glittered. Then Sansa drew herself up, shoulders small but steady. "I am Sansa Stark of Winterfell," she whispered, "daughter to Lady Catelyn and Lord Eddard." The hush was thunder. Littlefinger's smile cracked. "A touching fantasy." "Enough." Bronze Yon stepped between them, hand on the pommel of his sword. "Lord Baelish, you have lied beneath my roof. By Vale law, that is cause for trial." Peter spread his hands. "I misled no one. The girl begged my aid." Waynwood cut him off. "You misled us when you denied any Stark blood here. You misled the realm when you hid a great house's heir. Those are grave charges." Sansa swayed. Brienne darted forward to catch her elbow. Their eyes met, relief, terror, hope passing like clouds. "I have you, my lady," Brienne murmured. Peter's voice slithered through the rising clamor. "If you remove Lady Sansa from my protection, you condemn her to Queen Cersei's wrath. I alone kept her from Lannister dungeons. Yet you would keep her locked in your own," Royce said. "She will remain under Vale guard until the High Lords decide." A ripple of assent. Shadrich's smirk widened. He loved a good game. Littlefinger's smile faded. "Surely we can discuss." "Guards," Royce thundered. Escort Lord Baelish to his chambers and see he remains there until summoned." Swords rasped free. Peter's eyes narrowed. For a heartbeat Brienne thought he might draw steel. But he only bowed, elegant as ever, though cold fury coiled beneath the gesture. "As the veil wills," he said, departing beneath armed escort. When the footsteps faded, Brienne exhaled. Sansa clung to her arm, trembling. Bronze Yone nodded to the knight. "Your oath served you well, Sir Brienne." "Lady Stark." He inclined his head low. "Winterfell's blood is welcome beneath the crescent sky." Waynwood approached with a mother's smile. "Come, child. We'll see you warm and safe." Sansa managed a shaky curtsy. "Thank you, my lady." Podrick Payne appeared in the doorway, wide-eyed, and Brienne signaled him to stand ready. She felt Oathkeeper's weight settle easy at her hip, yet knew this victory was but the first stave of a longer song. Littlefinger would not yield quietly. His pawns moved unseen in every court. Still, Sansa had spoken her name, and truth, once loosed, could not be sheathed again. Outside, the sun burned the last tatters of mist from the valleys. The Eyrie's white walls flashed like a blade in morning light, and in a still smoldering heart, hope kindled anew, for Catelyn Stark's memory, for a promise kept, and for a young woman who had dared to claim herself beneath a sky made of stone and storm. A hush lay over the Eyrie as dusk bled violet across the sky, the mountains blotting out the last gold of sun like titans closing their eyes. Sansa sat wrapped in a fur-lined cloak on a narrow window bench, her breath fogging the glass while distant peaks faded to silhouettes. A brazier burned low behind her, but weariness gnawed through the warmth. Somewhere in the airy labyrinth of corridors, Littlefinger paced his gilded cage, confined yet unbroken, while Vale Lords debated how best to shackle a snake without being bitten. She turned at the rustle of mail. Brienne stepped into the chamber, broad shoulders brushing the lintel, Podrick hovering at her back with watchful eagerness. The knight removed her gauntlets and knelt, lowering herself to Sansa's height, blue eyes steady beneath candle glint. "My lady, Lord Royce and Lady Waynwood ask that you address the council at moonrise. They wish to hear the story from your own lips." Sansa's throat tightened. "They will want dates, names, proof. All I have are memories." "Memories enough to damn Lord Baelish," Brienne said. "Tell them of King's Landing, of Ser Dantos and the ship of Lysa's fall. And if fear threatens, remember Winterfell's Godswood. Root yourself there." Podrick shifted, cheeks pinking. "We have your cloak, my lady. The dire wolf will remind them too." He lifted the heavy Stark mantle Brienne had found in an armory, gray wool thick as optimism, white wolf's head stitched in silver thread. Sansa's fingers trembled over it. She had last worn a dire wolf at 13, yet the sigil's eyes seemed alive, bright as watchfires. "I will stand before them," she whispered. "I will be Sansa Stark." Moonrise found the high hall thrumming with low voices and boot scuffs. Torches lined the pillars, their smoke swirling into the frigid dome where moonlight pooled like liquid milk. Bronze Yone Royce presided from the dais beneath the carved falcon and crescent. Horton Redfort leaned upon a wolf-headed cane. Anya Waynwood sat to Royce's left, knitting silent judgments into each line of her stern mouth. Behind them, younger knights and minor lords filled benches, curious as crows drawn to glitter. Brienne escorted Sansa forward, Podrick half a step behind. The Stark cloak rippled at Sansa's shoulders. Her copper hair gleamed in torchlight. A hush rolled outward like ripples on mirrored water. Royce rose. "Lady Sansa Stark, daughter to Lord Eddard and Lady Catelyn, you stand before the veil to claim your name. Speak, that we may know truth." Sansa drew breath. Her voice emerged soft at first, yet gained steel with memory. The tourney of the hand, Joffrey's cruelty, her father's fall, the long night of fear beside Cersei while wildfire painted the Blackwater green. She spoke of Littlefinger's whispers, how he spirited her from the city after Joffrey's murder, how Ser Dantos died for his help, how Lysa Arryn greeted her as niece then tried to hurl her through the moon door, how Lord Baelish kissed the lady before he threw her to the sky. Gasps stirred like wind in hanged leaves. Sansa named witnesses. the musician Marillion whose tongue had been torn out, the guards who had cleaned blood from marble, the serving girls who saw the broken body. Each name fell like a hammer blow. She told of Littlefinger's lies to keep the Vale Lords docile, of forged ledgers that blamed Lisa's death on a mad singer, of hush money paid from Gulltown coffers. When she faltered, Brienne placed a gauntlet to her back and she steadied. By the time she finished, silence lay thick as snowdrift. Even the crackle of torches seemed muted, as though flame itself held its breath. Lady Waynwood folded her knitting. "We must hear Lord Baelish answer." Royce gestured. Iron-shirt guards escorted Peter Baelish into the chamber, wrists unmanacled but ringed by steel. He wore velvet the color of spilled wine and smiled with the calm of a man wagering on loaded dice. "My lords, my ladies," he began, voice silk-sheathed. "I have served the Vale with loyalty, guided young Lord Robert through turmoil." "Guided him?" Royce rumbled. "You coddled him with sweets and terrors until his every breath sings of your bidding." Littlefinger sighed, pained. "The boy is fragile. Love is gentler than duty. Spare us." Waynwood's needles clicked once, sharp as daggers. "You heard the girl. Indeed, a tale fit for singers. Yet a singer framed me for murder. Curious coincidence." Peter clasped his hands. "Evidence can be shaped like soft wax. I ask only that we consider motive. Why would I slay the woman who held the veil for me? A wife devoted." "She was no wife to you," Sansa cut in. Her voice rang like winter steel. "She was your ladder." Littlefinger's eyes flicked to her, amusement thinning. "Sweetling, grief clouds. Do not call me Sweetling." Murmurs rippled across benches. Royce banged the haft of his warpick against marble. "We will weigh motive later. First, the charge stands that you concealed the heir to Winterfell. By law, such deceit is treason against her house." "Treason? Elle." Littlefinger feigned shock. "I protected her from Queen Cersei, from the Boltons, from daylight," Sansa said, "from friends, from every rescue you did not orchestrate." Peter's smile slipped a fraction. "The girl is distraught. She confuses gratitude with accusation." Brienne stepped forward, Oathkeeper's lion-forged pommel catching torchlight. "She speaks truth. I found her despite your walls, your lies. She would be free of your shadow. Ah, the Lady Knight, loyal dog to dead masters." Littlefinger's gaze traced her armor, lingered on the golden lion's head at her sword and the sevenfold star of faith pinned to her cloak. "And yet you carry the colors of Lannister stealers and Tyrell schemers. How pure your cause." Color rose in Brienne's cheeks, but Royce barked, "Enough." He turned to Sansa. "Lady Stark, do you wish protection under Vale law?" "I do, my lord." Royce nodded to two knights in winged helms. "Then you are our honored guest. Ser Waymar, escort Lady Sansa to the Maiden's Tower. Post guards of your own choosing." Waymar Royce bowed and offered his arm. Sansa hesitated only to squeeze Brienne's hand before following. Podrick shadowed them, one palm on his sword hilt. Littlefinger watched, half-lidded. When the door closed behind Sansa, he cleared his throat. "My lords, I regret that the girl's fantasies have ensnared your sympathies. But perhaps we sell peace cheaply. A girl is a valuable hostage. House Stark holds half the north. King Tommen would reward her return handsomely." A pewter goblet shattered against the floor. Lady Waynwood had flung it. "You would sell her as you sold Harrenhal, as you sold every vow you ever swore." Horton Redfort raised his cane. "The council will deliberate. You will return to your chambers under guard until we summon you." Peter's bow was deep, but venom glittered beneath his lashes. "Of course." Yet as he straightened, his gaze flicked beyond the pillars, to where a young guardsman lingered by a side passage, eyes downcast. A silent exchange passed in an eyelash's flutter. Then Littlefinger allowed himself to be led away. Brienne's unease prickled. She memorized the guardsman's thin face, the slope of his shoulders. Rat among ravens, she thought, and filed it beside the promise she'd made to Catelyn Stark. Night deepened, and stars hung like knife points over the veil. In the Maiden's Tower, Sansa tried to settle into a featherbed so soft it threatened to swallow her whole. But each gust against the shutters sounded like a hand at the latch. Each creak of timber set her heart pounding. She rose and paced, cloak brushing rushes strewn for warmth. A knock at the door drew her rigid. "Who is it?"
Sir Brienne.
Relief loosened her limbs. She unbarred the heavy oak, and Brienne entered, helm beneath her arm. "My lady, I will stand guard outside until dawn. Podrick and a Royce man share the watch. You are safe." Sansa's eyes stung. "You never waver, sir." Brienne's mouth twitched, half smile, half apology. "I waver enough to worry. Vale corridors are long, and Littlefinger's reach is longer." She set a dagger on the bedside table. "Lock this door. Should you hear any step beyond ours, call out." Sansa nodded, fingers brushing the hilt. Will the lords truly judge him? They gather evidence now. Royce means to hold a trial by council come sunrise. Will truth prevail? Brienne gazed at the shuttered window. "Truth is a stubborn weed, my lady. Cut it, burn it, bury it, and it finds new light. But men with gold and tongues of silver craft false flowers convincing to any eye. We must ensure the weed grows higher." She bowed once and withdrew. The door thudded shut. The bar slid home. Sansa clutched the dagger and stared at the moon-trimmed curtains until exhaustion dragged her to the bed. Sleep came fitful. Dreams of snow and blood and the echo of a lute string snipped in darkness. Across the courtyard in a modest guest wing, guards unlocked Lord Baelish's chamber, shoved him inside, and bolted the door. Peter Baelish stood listening until their footsteps faded. Then he crossed to the hearth where a low fire smoldered and withdrew a knife hidden beneath the grate. He sliced a rope beside the stones, and a small panel clicked open, revealing a narrow shaft descending into black. He smiled like a man greeting an old lover. Moments later he slipped through, boots silent on a hidden stair spiraling deep into the mountain's marrow. Torch bracket after torch bracket waited, long cold, until his flint coaxed a spark into struggling life. Shadows danced along damp limestone tunnels carved centuries past, smugglers' byways known only to those who bought every secret coin could purchase. At a fork he paused, producing from his sleeve a slender whistle. One shrill note flitted through passages. In the hush that followed came an answering scrape. The thin guardsman from earlier, face pale, eyes wide. "Your loyalty will be legend, Burnett," Littlefinger murmured. "Ready the young lord. The boy, he's frightened. Fear sharpens obedience. Lead him upward to the Eyrie's rookery. I will meet you there. No one denies Lord Robert his morning sky." Burnett swallowed. "And the lady?" "Handled." Peter's smile was a blade under velvet. "Go." They parted like shadows dissolving into deeper dark. Dawn stained the eastern rim gold when Brienne's watch ended. She found Podrick on the stair, helm askew, muttering every nightly vow he knew to stay awake. A smile touched her lips. "Go sleep 2 hours. I'll mind the door." Podrick protested, then yawned cavernously and obeyed. Brienne leaned against the stone, listening to gulls crying far below. The council would convene soon. She ran battle drills in her head, corridor choke points, tower exits, where Littlefinger's men might hide. She trusted Royce, yet knew half the household remained Peter's creatures bought with coin or promises. Her thoughts scattered at a sudden commotion. Hoofbeats, shouts. A horn blew one clear note.
"Brienne spoon."
The sound came not from the courtyard but higher, from the Eyrie's outer perch where the sky cages hoisted Lord Robert for fresh air. A Royce guard burst round the corner panting.
"Sir."
The young lord's missing. His sky cage descended empty. Cold punched Brienne's gut. To the Maiden's Tower. Now! They sprinted. At the tower's base, the Royce knight cursed. The posted sentry lay slumped, breathing but stunned by a blunt strike. Brienne vaulted the spiraling steps 2, 3 at a time. She hammered the door. "Lady Sansa?" No answer. She slammed shoulder first. Oak groaned. Iron hinges screamed. The bar snapped. Inside, curtains billowed over an open window. The featherbed was empty save for a single lock of auburn hair pinned by a silver mockingbird brooch. Littlefinger's sigil. Rage flared red behind Brienne's eyes. She tucked the brooch into her glove. "Sound the alarm," she barked at the night. "Every gate closes. Lord Baelish has fled with Sansa and the boy." The night wheeled away. Brienne crossed to the window. No balcony outside, only sheer white stone dropping hundreds of feet. But a rope ladder hung, knotted silk swaying. Clever, quick. She sheathed Oathkeeper and began to descend. Wind clawed her cloak as she rappelled down the wall. Below, stone buttresses marched like frozen waves toward the snow garden. She landed, boots crunching frost, and drew Oathkeeper. Tracks marred the drift, small boot prints, adult steps beside. One set dragged. Robert's weak limbs, perhaps. Brienne followed at a run, breath burning. A shrill whistle cut the air, a mountain Garen answering a master's call. She hurdled a low wall and burst into the upper stables. Horses neighed, stamping. A side door gaped wide. Beyond lay the hunter's path leading east, a treacherous descent of switchback seldom used except by poachers and reckless youths. At its head, hoofprints scored the frosty soil. Brienne vaulted into the saddle of a chestnut mare still saddled for dawn patrol. Without bothering with stirrups, she kicked the horse into motion, thundering down the path where moonlit frost still clung to shade. The trail plunged through pine-cloaked slopes, ice-slick where mountain springs bled across rock. Brienne leaned forward, whispering to the mare, trusting her hooves. Branches clawed at her pauldrons. Pine needles hissed off polished steel. Wind roared in her helm like surf. She followed fresh tracks. 2 horses, 1 pony. Robert's Garen would lag. Indeed, smears of snow where a mount stumbled told the tale. Half a mile down, the path cut across a narrow ledge flanked by knife-edge drop. Brienne reined to a trot. Midway, she saw them. Littlefinger, astride a gray courser, cloak whipping like storm banners. Sansa, mounted before him, wrists bound by a silken scarf. Robert Arryn hunched on a pony, weeping in giant sobs. Beside them rode the thin guardsman Brienne, crossbow slung. Brienne's shout cracked the air. "In the name of Lady Catelyn Stark, yield!" Littlefinger reined round, gray skittering. "Brienne!" he called, voice bright as coins. "Your timing remains impeccable. Release her." Oathkeeper pointed like a shard of dawn. "I think not." Peter nudged the courser forward until a gap of a dozen yards separated them. The ledge left no room for flanking. Sheer cliff rose right, plunging gorge yawned left. One step closer and Brienne looses a bolt through Lord Robert's tender heart. How would the Vale greet that? Brienne lifted the crossbow. Robert squealed, nearly spilling from his saddle. Brienne halted, teeth bared. "Harm the boy, and every gate in Westeros will close to you." Littlefinger laughed softly. "Gates open when oiled with gold, but blood is more persuasive." He pressed a dagger to Sansa's ribs. "Ride back. Tell Bronzione I depart with the Lady of Winterfell and the Lord of the Eyrie. If he wants them returned, he may open his granaries, have his taxes, and grant me Runestone's mines. A fair ransom." Sansa's gaze met Brienne's over the dagger's gleam. Fear? Yes, but something flared behind it. Resolve. Brienne spoke quietly. "My lady, do not be afraid. I am Sansa Stark," she answered, voice steady. "Starks are not afraid." Littlefinger smiled at the words, but his eyes narrowed. He urged the courser backward down the trail, Brienne and Robert preceding. Brienne kneed her mare to match pace, weapon drawn. An impasse of hoofbeats and steel stretched along the ledge, echoes lost in abyss below. Then Sansa moved. She twisted suddenly, elbow driving into Peter's ribs. The dagger nicked her cloak, missed flesh. In the instant he recoiled, she seized his wrist with both bound hands and bit hard. Littlefinger cursed. The courser reared. Brienne charged. Brienne yelled, crossbow swinging toward her. But Robert's pony skittered sideways, jostling his aim. The bolt flew wide, clanging off rock. Brienne rose in stirrups and whipped Oathkeeper in a high arc. The flat of the blade smashed Burnett's helm, hurling him off saddle. Crossbow clattered, lost over the cliff. Littlefinger wrestled for balance. Sansa kicked free, hit the ground rolling. Brienne leapt from her mare even as the courser pivoted. She slammed Peter with her shield, sending horse and rider sprawling against stone. Robert screamed, clutching reins. Brienne snatched his bridle before the pony bolted into void. She thrust Oathkeeper point down, anchoring reins beneath the crossguard. "Stay," she told the boy, perhaps the only command he'd heed through terror. Littlefinger staggered upright, blood trickling from lip. He drew a stiletto, eyes black with calculation. "You ruin everything," he hissed. "Why?" Brienne asked, advancing. "What price is worth so many lives?" "Everything has a price." He feinted left. She parried. Steel rang, sparks showering rock. He danced back, quick, precise, deadly as a snake, but Brienne pressed, shield battering, blade carving arcs. He sought openings in her plate, thrusting at groin and armpit. She turned every strike with bone-jarring force. Sansa scrambled to her feet, wrists still bound. She seized Burnett's fallen sword. The weight nearly toppled her, but she held. Littlefinger darted past Brienne, blades kissing as he slid inside guard. He sprang toward Sansa, knife drawn. Whether to seize her or slay her neither knew. Sansa raised the sword two-handed but too slow. Brienne hurled her shield. The oak and iron disc whirled, edge catching Peter's temple. He spun, knife scattering over stone, and toppled near the precipice. Brienne closed, boot on his wrist, Oathkeeper at his throat. "It won't matter," he gasped, blood smearing marble skin. "You think the Vale Lords love a Stark more than gold? They'll quarrel until winter when Lannisters march and Boltons ride. The North is ashes. The Vale is mine. I planted roots deeper than Royce's pride." "Roots burn," Brienne said. She slammed the pommel once. Littlefinger's eyes rolled back and he fell limp. Sansa stared, sword shaking. Brienne knelt, cut her bonds. "Are you hurt?" "Only bruised." Tears welled, but she blinked them away. She looked to Robert, who sobbed on his pony. "He mustn't see more blood. We ride before his fears grow." Brienne whistled. Her mare trotted near. She bound Peter's wrists with the same silk scarf, secured him across his horse. Burnett groaned where he lay, alive, concussed. They set off up the trail, Brienne leading Littlefinger's gray, Sansa riding beside Robert, who clung to her waist, weeping. Dawn's first light spread over peaks, crowning them gold. The Eyrie's gates gaped wide when they returned. Royce and 20 winged knights rode out in panicked disorder, but reigned at the sight. Sansa leading the boy, Brienne dragging Littlefinger like a trophy of war. In the courtyard, Royce dismounted. "You captured him?" "On the hunter's path," Brienne said, voice flat with fatigue. "He took the boy." She handed over the mockingbird brooch. Proof of intent. Royce accepted it grimly. Waynwood enveloped Sansa in a cloak, ushering Robert to maesters. Bronzeone signaled guards. "Bind Baelish in irons. Prepare a cell strong as pride." Littlefinger, waking, let out a breathy laugh.
"Irons rust."
Memories fade, but debts endure. Bronzeone. One raven south and the queen will pay any tariff for her fair wolf and the sweetling lord. Royce struck him, not with closed fist but with a steward's ledger he carried. Ink-splotched book bursting under impact. Paper flew like startled doves. "Your ravens fly no more," Royce rumbled. "Your wings are clipped." He turned to Brienne. "Sire, you earned our gratitude. We will convene at once. This time, the court will not adjourn until justice bears weight." Brienne bowed, exhaustion tugging at her sinews, but relief traveled deeper than bone. The second council convened at noon. Brienne stood at Sansa's side but a half-pace behind. Bodyguard, witness, silent pillar. Vale knights ringed the hall. No secret doors remained unbarred. Littlefinger knelt before the dais, wrists bound, ankles shackled. His velvet doublet was torn, hair matted with dried blood. Yet his smile returned when Royce proclaimed the charge. Treason, murder of Lisa Arryn, kidnapping of Lord Protector Robert Arryn, concealment of Lady Sansa Stark, conspiracy to defraud the Vale. Littlefinger requested trial by combat. Gasps eddied. Royce's eyes narrowed. Who will champion you? Burnett lies abed, skull cracked. I am not without friends, Peter said, scanning benches. A handful of men exchanged uneasy glances, minor knights whose purses fattened with Baelish coin. Yet none rose. Littlefinger chuckled softly. A pity. Lady Waynwood leaned forward. The Vale denies you trial by combat. You are not a knight, nor noble by birth. Peter opened his mouth. Shut it. For the first time Brienne saw fear coil in his pupils. Black serpents in shallow green pools. Bronze Yone announced sentence. Lord Baelish would be confined pending transport to Winterfell, to stand before Lady Stark's bannermen for crimes against House Stark. But first, the murder of Lady Lisa would be judged here. 3 maesters would examine evidence. Sworn witness would swear before the 7. As Royce spoke, Sansa lifted her chin. My lords, I ask that Ser Brienne represent my voice. I am weary of recounting horrors alone. Brienne inclined her head, then faced the lords. Her testimony unfolded. Hers and Podrick's discovery on the mountain road, the capture on the Hunter's Ledge, combined with Sansa's earlier account, with Burnett's confession under Maester's milk of the poppy, and with accounts of stable hands who heard Littlefinger plan the flight, the case hardened like ice. Littlefinger tried once more. Gulltown awaits my return, its coffers ready for Vale debts. Release me, and I pledge an army of gold. Gold buys bread, not honor, Horton Redfort croaked. The council adjourned only when ravens flew, to Winterfell, to Riverrun, to White Harbor, bearing news. Sansa Stark lived. On the morrow, Littlefinger would hang. Snow fell that night, soft feathering cloaking the Eyrie in hush. Brienne stood on a parapet overlooking the valley where flurries drifted like pale moths. Sansa joined her, wolf cloak drawn tight. Tomorrow ends a chapter, the girl whispered. Yet the story ahead is longer. True, Brienne studied drifting flakes. Littlefinger's death will not erase scars. Lannisters, Boltons, they still hunt. Will you stay with me? Brienne turned, meeting eyes bright with starlight. If you'll have me, I would be lost without you, Sansa said. We will ride north when the passes thaw, gather loyal men, take back Winterfell. Brienne's pulse thrummed. We will. Below, torches crossed the yard like flickering constellations. The Vale stirred with rumors of a Stark in their midst. Some whispered war, others whispered hope. In the sky, the moon burned a cold coin over snow-wreathed peaks. Sansa drew a long breath and exhaled mist. Tomorrow, she said, tomorrow we plant roots that will not burn. Brienne rested a gauntlet on the stone. Her other hand covered the brooch pocketed earlier, a mockingbird silenced. Oathkeeper hung at her side, edge gleaming faint. She watched flakes land on Sansa's hair, white against auburn, melting into tiny beads that caught starlight and shattered. The night deepened. Far below, the Vale slept, but on that parapet, 2 figures remained. One forged of oath, one born of winter, both waiting for dawn and whatever battle lay beyond its pale promise. Night's last embers guttered in the brazier outside Brienne's narrow chamber when a muted scrape stirred her from half-sleep. She lay on the pallet still fully mailed, Oathkeeper unbelted but close within reach, and the sound, a furtive rustle of leather against stone, flicked her eyes wide open. Frosted moonlight spilled through an arrow slit, enough to limn shapes. The door, the cloak peg, the jug of water gone to ice. Again the whisper, slow, deliberate, not the careless stumble of a drunken guard. Brienne's fingers closed over her sword hilt. She rose without a creak, bare feet padding to the wall. A shadow eclipsed the door gap. The latch shifted. She kicked the panel open, would slammed a hooded figure backward into the corridor's pale glow. Steel hissed. Brienne caught the wrist before the dagger left its sheath and twisted. Bone grated, blade clattered. The intruder choked on a gasp. She dragged him into her room, pressed him against the wall, forearm like an iron bar across his throat. "Names," she said simply. "No, don't." The voice quavered high, boyish. In the thin light she recognized the stable lad, the one who'd held her mare after the mountain pursuit. Straw-blonde hair, freckles, no more than 14. Brienne slackened a finger's breadth yet did not free him. "Why come creeping?" He swallowed. Ser Shadrich sent me. Said to warn you the Mutons and Coldwater's plot in the kitchens. They'd see Lord Baelish freed by dawn. They've coined from Gulltown and knives. Shadrich. The Mad Mouse had vanished when the council sealed the fate of Peter Baelish. Brienne had half expected treachery from that quarter. Yet this smelled of another game entirely. She studied the lad's terrified eyes, then released him. "Tell me everything." Through stammered sentences she pieced the tale. A wine-sink whispered scheme, a purse of silver moons passed hand to hand, a hidden stair from cellar to cellars deep under the high hall where smuggler galleries met winter stores. The conspirators planned to drug 2 sentries, drag Littlefinger out through refused posterns, then ride for Snakewood where a Bravosian galley waited. Brienne's jaw tightened. "You saw them?" "No, sir. But I carried the wine casks, saw them salt meat and powders in the flagons. I heard the Coldwater Knight laugh that the guards would sleep like babes." Tears welled. Ser Shadrich said if I told no one, I'd share the purse. But I'd rather serve the Lady Stark. "Good lad." She tossed him her cloak. "Wake Bronze Yon's household guard, but speak only to Ser Waymar. Say the wolf demands her fangs. Go." He bolted. Brienne rebuckled Oathkeeper, strapped on greaves, and loped down the spiral, heart hammering in tempered rhythm. The Eyrie slept beneath hush of snow, yet beneath its marble skin plots scuttled like spiders. She found Podrick in the second antechamber, head drooping over ledger duty. A nudge startled him awake. "Armor," she whispered, quietly. Pod fetched his half-plate and followed without question. Together they descended to the kitchens, a warren of dim hearths and shuttered ovens. Smoke ghosts coiled. A lone cook snored beside dying coals. Brienne crossed to the wine racks. 2 casks sat apart, bungs wax-sealed. She cracked one, sniffed. Sweet almond undertow. Sleeping draught. Pod's eyes widened. "Maester's milk of the poppy and sweet sleep both," he murmured. "Enough for an army." Footsteps. Brienne plunged behind a stacked grain bin, dragged Pod with her. Through the slats they watched 3 figures creep from the butchery corridor. Ser Miles Coldwater in a mottled cloak, thin as hunger. Ser Byron Mouton, round-cheeked yet eyes sharp as carving knives. Last, a squat man in Gulltown livery bearing lockpicks. Coldwater parted his cloak to reveal a black-handled dirk. "Quicksilver," he told the others, stroking the blade. "A dab at the throat. No noise, no mess. Lord Baelish is worth 10 times the risk." Brienne measured the distance. 10 paces, a trestle between. She signal-tapped Pod's wrist, strike when she moved. Coldwater hefted a cask. Mouton doused a rag with drugged wine. They turned toward the servant's stair. Brienne rose. "Stop!" Steel flashed. Coldwater flung the cask. Brienne ducked as it burst against the grain sacks, spraying narcotic syrup. She vaulted the trestle and slammed her shield into Mutton's chest. He flew backward, rattling pans. Pod lunged at the Gulltown man, knocking picks aside. Coldwater pirouette, dirk slashing. Brienne caught the wrist, twisted, felt sinew pop. He yowled, dropped the blade, grappled for her throat. She headbutted, helm-crushing nose, then kneed him hard. He sagged. Mouton scrambled for the door. Pod tripped him with a broom haft. By the time Royce's men thundered in, both conspirators lay bound. Waymar Royce strode down the stairs, eyes glacial. Brienne recounted swiftly. Waymar's jaw clenched. "We thought the cell secure. It seems Littlefinger's rot runs deeper." He beckoned guards. "Chain these 2 with their master. At dawn they'll share his drop." The gallows stood in the snow garden, timbered dark against pristine drifts, its rope a lone icicle frozen in moonshine. Before dawn's first blush, Brienne accompanied Ser Waymar and 24 knights to Littlefinger's cell. They found him awake, seated cross-legged, fingers steepled, the calm of a man who had weighed every outcome and counted the profit even in death. "Ser Waymar," he greeted, voice a velvet purr though his lips split anew. "Shall we walk?" Waymar motioned. Chains clinked as guards marched baelish through lamplit halls. Brienne observed his eyes. No plea, no fear, only calculation. As they crossed a cloister where star lamps flickered, he glanced at her. "What song will the bards make of you, Lady Brienne?" The maid of Tarth who broke her vows to shield a murderer from justice, who knelt to a dead king's honor, who failed Renly, failed Catelyn, and now clings to her last charge like a drowning girl. Brienne's hand twitched on Oathkeeper. "I failed no one today," he smirked. "We shall see, when winter closes roads and the Boltons scour the north."
Volvis die Intreps.
"Yet still they bite," she said. Snow fell thick by sunrise, big lazy flakes muffling the courtyard where a silent crowd gathered. Knights in winged helms, squires bundled in furs, kitchen girls clutching each other, Maester Coleman with quills frozen into his sleeve. Bronze Yon Royce, cloak billowing, mounted the steps to the scaffold. Sansa stood beside him, stark cloak drawn tight, her hair woven in a northern braid. She kept her gaze steady on Peter Baelish as he was led up the ladder. Littlefinger met her eyes. For the first time, Brienne saw a crack in his composure, a brief tremor. "Sansa," he said softly, only for her. "None of them love you. They love what you will gain for them. Remember the lesson." Sansa's face did not change. "I have learned all your lessons," she replied, "and I thank you. They will guide me in every choice by doing the opposite." Bronze Yon's voice rang. "Peter Baelish called Littlefinger. You stand condemned by the Lords Declarant of the Vale for murder, treason, kidnapping, and conspiracy. Have you final words?" Littlefinger glanced at the snow-veiled peaks, at the crowd waiting like frozen statues. He smiled, small and weary. "Only that ladders are meant to be climbed, even those made of bones." He glanced once more at Sansa. "Some climb higher than others." Royce signaled. The executioner in plain mail pulled the lever. Wood groaned. Rope snapped taut. Peter Baelish danced for a heartbeat, twitching like a marionette as snowflakes kissed his cheeks. Then stillness. A hush deeper than any sermon spread across the garden. Sansa's eyes filled but did not spill. Brienne laid a gauntlet on her shoulder. Podrick bowed his head. Winter wind rose, scattering flakes over the dead man's velvet shoes, half buried now in immaculately falling white. For 3 days the Eyrie bustled. Ravens bearing news, scribes drafting letters of alliance, maesters printing new coin tallies as Gulltown revenue reallotted to repairs and garrisons. Sansa received Royce, Waynwood, Redfort, Belmore, and Corbray one by one, accepting sworn promises that the Vale would defend her claim in the north. She signed each parchment with a careful hand. Sansa Stark, Lady of Winterfell. In private, she practiced her words for the Lords of Winterfell. If any Stark bannermen remained loyal under Bolton rule, she would not promise them quick victory. She would promise them winter honesty. Brienne, meanwhile, drilled the Vale garrison in courtyard snow, shield wall against cavalry, archer staggered volleys, spear countercharges. Knights watched, some laughing, until she trounced 2 in practice bouts. Then they listened. Podrick blossomed under her tutelage, parrying with crisp arcs, shield always angled. One crisp morning Sansa approached the yard, snow creaking beneath sable boots. Brienne called halt. Pod wiped sweat, beamed at Sansa, then bowed. She smiled back. "You improve daily, Ser Podrick." He flushed scarlet. "I mean to guard you better than I did your mother." "You already do." Her fingers squeezed his arm before turning to Brienne. "The passes may close within weeks. Lord Royce advises we depart by the west road tomorrow while it remains clear." Brienne nodded. "We'll need pack mules and warm cloaks. 2 days to Runestone, then down to the coast at Sisterton. Sail to White Harbor if the Manderleys send a ship. And if Lord Manderley denies us, then we land where we must." Brienne looked east where dawn painted the peaks rose gold. Winterfell's shadow stretches long. Sansa exhaled, mist streaming. There is another matter. Robert remains fragile. He begs to accompany us. Brienne frowned. The boy wouldn't survive sea gales. Bronze Yohn will govern as Lord Regent until Robert comes of age. But the boy fears abandonment. I think to gift him something solid, hope he can hold. What gift? Sansa's eyes softened. A story. You saved me, Brienne, by being true when every lie promised easier paths. I would tell Robert that tale, so he learns courage in truth. She paused. Will you permit it? Brienne glanced at the knights loosing helm straps, laughter rising over drifting flakes. She pictured Catelyn by the riverbank, the promise Brienne failed to keep yet still chased through snows and swords. If the story helps him stand, let it be told. That night, candles flickered in the Eyrie solar where Lady Waynwood hosted a farewell supper. Salted trout and lemon, roast duck, turnip stew thick with marrow. Sansa sat at the high table flanked by Waynwood and Brienne. Podrick, grinning, shared ale with squires below. Bronze Yohn offered a toast. To Winterfell restored and old wrongs righted. Cups raised. Wine glowed red against rushlight. A troubadour strummed softly by the hearth, singing of Ser Ardy's Arryn's falcon flight across the mountains. Robert Arryn nestled beside Maester Coleman, sipping watered wine and brightening when Sansa met his gaze. She smiled, and the boy sat straighter, spoon abandoned in favor of shy pride. Brienne watched and wondered if being a knight might sometimes mean cradling more fragile things than swords. The feast wound late, but soon Sansa begged leave to prepare for travel. Brienne escorted her along corridors where torchlight bent across polished marble floors. Barefoot servants dipped curtsies, carrying linens and hot stones for bed warmers. Snow tapped against arrow slits like soft fingers asking entry. Near the maiden's tower stair they found Ser Shadrich the Mad Mouse leaning on a pillar, amber eyes glinting. He bowed with courtly precision. My ladies, Pod tells me you ride at dawn. May I escort you across the biting night? Brienne's hand moved to sword belt. The path is watched, yet watchers may blink. Shadrich's grin exposed even teeth. Fear not, I have sheathed my daggers. He produced palmed, a folded parchment. A gift, Littlefinger's private ledger copy, names, debts, bribes. I pilfered it before the gallows robbed conversation. Sansa accepted it, brow knitted. Why give this? Information is coin. I invest. He winked. Winter is coming. We all hedge. With a flourishing bow, he vanished down branching corridor, cloak swirling like a mouse tail. Sansa weighed the parchment. Brienne said, he plays too many sides, and sometimes plays reveal themselves. She slipped the ledger inside her cloak. Dawn shimmered across Cloud Sea when the column departed the Eyrie. 50 Vale Knights, a dozen men-at-arms, 2 wagons laden with grain and arms, 6-pack mules, Brienne at point, Sansa within a curtained wain, Podrick riding flank with Lady Waynwood's standard, Falcon and Crescent quartered with the dire wolf of Stark. Robert Arryn, pale but resolute, stood on the gate tower to wave as they passed beneath, Maester Coleman at his elbow. Bronze Yohn rode beside the wagon until switchbacks steepened, then parted with a clatter of hooves and oath of aid. Snow thickened as they wound through the stone teeth of the mountain. Brienne kept vigilant. Avalanches, brigands, mountain clans. At dusk they camped in a hollow beneath leaning pines, pitched tents, lit a central fire where armor steamed. Sansa emerged to share broth and hard bread, wrapped in wolf fur. She thanked each guard by name, the courtesy warming iron hearts against the night. Second day, they reached Runestone where House Royce banners snapped stark black against snowfall. Lady Alicent Royce greeted them with stout hospitality, provisioning dried apples, oats, and fresh horses. She pressed Sansa's hands. Tell the North that the Vale stands with her. Sansa's eyes shone. I will. Beyond Runestone, the west road dipped toward the coast, curving through cedar forests ghost still beneath powdery drifts. One crisp afternoon, as gulls wheeled overhead, Brienne spied Sisterton's harbor. Jetties seamed with ice, fishing cogs moored like sleeping geese, and at outer quay a tall caravel bearing a silver merman on indigo sail, Manderley of White Harbor. A pilot boat ferried Brienne and Sansa across water glazed with frost. On deck they met Sir Marlon Manderley, ruddy-cheeked, cloaked in sea otter, in command of the caravel Sea Wolf. He bowed deep. "Lady Stark, Lord Wyman bids you welcome to his halls. Your friends are ours, your foes harried by tide and spear." Sansa thanked him, voice steady. They signed boarding parchment. Dockhands loaded mules and wagons. By dusk, oars dipped, sails bellied, and the Sea Wolf slipped into slate waters, prow slicing foam. For 5 days they sailed north along the Bight, coastal winds whipping snow into salt-flecked spray. Sansa spent hours by rail, gaze fixed on horizon. Brienne joined her, gloved hands gripping icy wood. "Cold?" she asked. "Sharper than King's Landing, kinder than court," Sansa said. "Do you know what I remember of sea voyages? A promise of lemons in bravos that never came. It was all lies." She inhaled brine. "This air smells honest." Podrick staggered across the deck, sea legs still wobbly, clutching a bucket half spilled. Brienne suppressed a smile. "Your first sail, Pod?" "Second, my lady." He wiped mouth. But the first was shorter. A cry from the mast. "Sails to starboard." Brienne squinted. A sloop under gray pennant, hull low, course intercepting. Sir Marlon barked orders. Deckhands loosed bows. As distance closed, pennant resolved. A flayed man, pink on red. Bolton. Tension snapped taut as rigging. Sansa's breath froze. Brienne drew Oathkeeper. Pod readied crossbow though his arms quivered. Marlon shouted, "Helm hard! Prepare the scorpions!" But the sloop turned aside, merely pacing, as if counting. A horn moaned across waves, wolfish, taunting. Then the vessel bore away, red sails fading into falling snow. Brienne exhaled.
Sir Marlon cursed softly.
"Scouts. They know." Sansa's voice was ice. "Let them know. Winterfell waits." White Harbor loomed white indeed, thick with snow ridges on curtain walls. Merlins ghosted in frost, masts bristling like pine forest behind breakwater. Sea Wolf maneuvered up the harbor mouth, escorted by Manderley barges decked in lanterns. On the quay, a procession awaited. Banners of mermen on a white field, trumpets muted by cold, spearmen in sea-green cloaks. Lord Wyman Manderley himself, ample belly swathed in sable, stood flanked by sons Ser Wylis and Ser Wendell. At his right towered Davos Seaworth, the Onion Knight, gray-bearded, missing fingers. Sansa descended the gangplank with Brienne at her side. Lord Wyman knelt, difficult for girth, and kissed her gloved hand, eyes bright with unshed tears. "My lady, Winterfell lives in you. Welcome home, though walls be distant." Sansa bowed. "Lord Wyman, your loyalty heartens me." Davos clasped Brienne's forearm. "Ser thought you dead after the Blackwater." "I was merely lost," Brienne said, and found she meant it. Inside Newcastle's feasting hall, roaring hearths banished icy breath. Manderley cooks served charred soup with mussels, honeyed cod, sweet onion pies. Northmen cheered Sansa's health. War-beleaguered Freys glowered from wooden effigies spat on by boys. Lord Wyman spoke privately to Sansa and Brienne after meats cleared, voices low beneath banners. "Bolton grips Winterfell still," he said, "but his hold weakens." Rumors of Stannis Baratheon's camp at the Crofters' village spread fear. The Karstarks straddle fence, Mormonts harry along the coasts, Serwins raise banners in secret. Bring a Stark north and sparks meet tinder. Sansa sipped mulled wine. "I mean to march, but we are few. Few grow many when hearts remember home." Wyman handed her a sealed letter. From the wall, Jon Snow, Lord Commander. Sansa's pulse quickened. She slipped the wax. Jon's hand reported dire tidings. Wildling unrest, Greyjoy raiders on Stony Shore, Bolton's feeding crows at Moat Cailin, and offered what help he could spare. 10 seasoned rangers, and names of northern clans still true. Sansa folded the missive. I will not drag the Night's Watch into southern war. Jon offers counsel, not swords, Brienne said gently. He is still my brother. She turned to Wyman. Can we call banners here? The fat lord's eyes gleamed. We can host thrice your number by fortnight. Grain we have, salt fish aplenty. Yet roads bite. You must court the hill clans who hold passes. Wool, Little, Nori, Burley. Show them your face. They'll follow. I will go, Sansa said. Brienne nodded, hard ride through wolf-haunted snows. That night Sansa read Littlefinger's ledger by candle in a drafty chamber. Dozens of debts, names of lords south and north bribed with coin or secrets. Beside each entry a cipher denoted weakness. Cupidity, bastardy, hidden wives. One name glared, Arnulf Karstark, loyalty sold for promises of Lord Paramount. Sansa memorized every line. Across the hall Brienne carved Oathkeeper anew, oiling the blade, humming a lullaby from Tarth. Podrick slept curled near embers, clutching shield like a child holds blankets. Dawn rose pewter, wind keened off the shivering sea. Sansa rode out with Brienne, Podrick, Ser Marlin, Davos, and 20 mixed men. Manderly guards, Vale Lancers, Night's Watch Rangers black-cloaked. Destination: the Wolf's Den ruins where clans might gather at full moon. They followed the causey way south, skirting haunted barrows, crossing silver streams half-frozen ford. Crows watched from skeletal branches. Once a white direwolf's howl drifted across evening hush, raising gooseflesh. Sansa listened and thought of Bran lost north, of Arya's ghost stories, of Rickon Firebright somewhere unknown. They camped in ruined holdfasts, sturdy walls but roofs long gone. Brienne set double watches. On third night, a blizzard swallowed the world. Tents buckled. Men huddled beneath wagons. Snow smothered sound until only heartbeats thudded. Brienne crawled through drifts to Sansa's canvas, found her awake, eyes wide. Tell me a story, Sansa whispered, teeth chattering. Brienne thought of Tartha's sapphire shallows, of Renly's green tent, of songs unfinished. She chose one. There was a girl who followed a dream of knighthood across seas. She fought, failed, fought again. One day she learned knighthood is not steel or vows but carrying another's pain so they may stand. So she stood, though storms broke around her, and carrying pain she grew strong. Sansa wiped tears. Did the girl find peace? Peace is a castle under siege. She repairs one wall and the enemy tries another. But she holds. Brienne gently clasped Sansa's icy fingers. We hold. Blizzard passed at dawn. They unearthed horses, thawed saddle straps over fires. A raven circled, wings ink against blind white. It carried a slate tube. Pod whistled, coaxed the bird down with oats. Sansa cracked the tube. A parchment stained with blood flecks. Message from Ser Shadrich, cryptic. Bolton march south. Mummers show at Barrowton. Watch Karstark's shadow. Brienne frowned. The mad mouse scurries still. Wolves howled again that night, nearer. At last they reached the wolf's den. Ancient granite tower thrust above iced harbor. Inside roofless halls they found fires ablaze, smoke curling skyward through shattered rafters. Hill clans had gathered. Long-haired warriors draped in wolf pelts, women armed with gutting knives, children darting like ferrets. Torches revealed tattoos of blue swirl, bronze torques, wooden shields painted with snarling beasts. Big Bucket Wool stepped forth, bare of a man, beard ice-clumped. Who comes? He thundered. I am Sansa Stark, she said, voice ringing beneath ruined vaults. Daughter of Eddard, blood of Winterfell. I ask aid to cast out the flayed man who squats my home. A hush heavy as drummed snow. Then a wiry Nori woman spat in fire. Bolton's dogs rule south. Crowns break men. Why follow girl of songs? Sansa drew a dirk, sliced her own palm. Blood spattered snow. Because songs are truths we dare not speak aloud. My blood is winter's vow. Follow, and the north is yours again. Something moved in the crowd. An old woman stooped under reindeer cloak. Meege Mormont. She strode forward, spear tapped stone. I knew your mother. I see her now. She knelt. Bear Island stands with House Stark. Big Bucket roared laughter. Bears follow, wolves eat. He knelt too, fist-pounding chest. One by one clans bowed. Snow hissed on coals. Brienne watched, awe swelling. She had witnessed many oaths, but this, raw and wild, felt older than the Seven Shrines or Redwood Gods. Podrick blinked tears. That night they feasted on elk haunch and spruce beer. Sansa sat by the central fire, cloak lined with charred fur, answering questions of Winterfell's hearths. Whether the hot springs still steamed, whether Hearttree's face yet bled. She promised what she could. Brienne slipped outside, snow crunching under mailed boots, to patrol ramparts. Wind carried distant horn call. 3 blasts? She narrowed eyes. Shadows flicked between pines beyond ruin wall. She unsheathed. Show yourself. A figure emerged. Rangy, wrapped in ragged furs. Hood fell. A woman. Sharp cheekbones, dark hair streaked with gray, eyes like cold amber. She raised unarmed hands. I come from Barrowton. My name is Barbary Dustin, infamous Bolton ally. Brienne's grip tightened. Speak quick. Bolton marches to Widow's Watch, seeking Fry brides and Manderley gold. But Roose's bastard, Lord Ramsay, left Winterfell nearly empty. You wish the castle? Strike now. She produced a parchment. Map of secret postern through crypts, sigils drawn. I despise the flayed man. My grudge greater than yours. Why help? Vengeance, she said simply, and I require a promise. Spare the ones who bear Dustin name. Do and I open gates. Brienne studied her. Truth? Maybe hate can birth treachery. She could not decide alone. Lady Stark must judge. I will wait, Barbary said, melting back into trees like ghost of first men. Brienne returned inside, mind whirling. Morning council. Inside drafty sacristy Sansa, Brienne, Davos, Wyman, via Raven Scroll, Meege Mormont, Big Bucket Wool gathered over wooden map. Brienne recounted Barbary's offer. Meege smashed fist. Never trust Dustin bitch. Davos scratched beard. Yet opportunity ripe. Empty Winterfell saves many lives. Sansa traced lines on the map, firelight dancing in her eyes. My father taught that even an enemy's truth serves if weighed. She looked to Brienne. Could she be sincere? She burns with hate for Boltons, Brienne said. But so too might she hate Starks for old griefs. Pod spoke from doorway, surprising all. My lady, enemies lie, but walls are stone. Test her map from outside. If postern exists, her intent matters less. Sansa smiled faintly. Thank you, Ser Podrick. She turned to council. We muster within 3 days. Hill clans march over King's Road. Manderley fleet will land men north of Saltspear, draw Bolton eyes. Davos sails to Skagos for Rickon, if rumor true. Brienne, you ride with Vanguard to Winterfell's walls. Brienne bowed. Sansa pressed blood-bandaged palm to Hearttree carving in table. Winterfell belongs to wolves. Let snow and sword prove it. All present repeated the old words. The North remembers. The march south was a ghost caravan under pale auroras. Hill clans moving silent as owls. Mormont bearskins blending into forest. Manderley green men trudging through drifts singing faint dirges. Brienne rode at front, helmet visor up, breath pluming like dragon steam. Beside her trotted Jory Little, a youth whose laugh could split stone. Pod kept pace, crossbow slung, eyes scanning Treeline. 2 leagues north of Winterfell, they halted among barrow mounds. Dawn seeped gray. Drafts from hot springs warmed the air, steam rising over snow-garbed earth like spirits. Winterfell's broken towers speared horizon, banners of flayed man snapping crimson.
Brienne signaled halt.
Recon scouts slid ahead, silent as snowfall, and returned with news. Bolton garrison fewer than 200, most green. Ramsay away raiding. Walls undermanned. Secret postern visible. A narrow grate near the burned library, partly buried by collapse. Night fell, moon sickle thin. Brienne led a party of 10. Pod, 2 rangers. Mead's daughter Lyra, Jory little wool spearmen. They crept past steaming pools where snow melted to mud, climbed rubble to the grate. Barbry's map true, iron bars corroded. With silent effort they levered stone, slipped inside. Brienne's heart hammered echoes along dusty corridor, lined with stark crypt effigies. Stone kings with iron swords. She felt history breathing. Old kings of winter stern beneath wolfskin mantles, eyes carved to watch intruders. Torchlight glimmered on dust moats. Pod whispered a prayer. Stairs rose to pantry where guards dozed over dice and sour ale. Brienne signaled. In a blur, rangers slit throats, wool-clubbed skulls. No sound but gurgled sigh. Through kitchens they moved, flame-lit, knives singing. Mead's daughter dispatched a cook who reached for horn. Outside snow swirled. Brienne climbed battlements. Gatehouse unmanned but for 3 bored bowmen. She loosed 1 arrow, Pod another, wool spears third. Bodies toppled into courtyard drifts. She swung the sally port wide. Horn of the wool boomed. Clans surged, silent no longer. Like shadow wolves they poured across causeway, scaling inner bailey ladders. Bolton men roused, panicked. Bells clanged, clashed. But gates fell before half could muster. In the great hall a lone captain waved surrender. Brienne accepted, forbade slaughter. Still, blood-streaked snow, steam rising crimson. Dawn's first pale gold found the direwolf banner unfurled atop the broken tower, flapping triumph against sharpening wind. Brienne stood beneath, helm under arm, eyes on horizon where white sun climbed. She felt neither joy nor sadness, only completion like drawing last breath of an oath. Sansa entered Winterfell at noon through main gate, flanked by Mormont spears and wool drums. She dismounted upon the bridge, knelt to touch black stone warm with underlying springs. Tears traced cheeks. Brienne moved to speak, but Sansa only smiled, silent communion with the castle of her childhood. Courtyard gathered, ragged garrison, new allies, prisoners kneeling. Among them the Bolton steward, trembling. Sansa addressed all. No more flayed men, no more fear. Winterfell's hearths burn again for the north. Cheers rolled, echoing through ramparts, across steaming pools, over broken walls still weeping snow melt. That night a feast of victory in the hall, roofless yet vibrant. Kettles of hare stew, acorn bread, manderly lamprey pies. Ravaged banners burned in courtyard bonfire. Children laughed chasing ash. Maester Wolken, spared for mercy, tended wounded. Sansa sat at high table beneath new direwolf sigil. Brienne at her right. Davos returned with tidings of Skago's pledge. Mead at left telling bear tales. Podrick flirted shyly with Lyra Mormont, voice cracking. She punched his shoulder with grin. A hush fell when Sansa rose, cup raised. To those who bore the weight of oaths. She glanced at Brienne. To those whose swords stood between me and darkness. Eyes wet, she continued. And to the north, may our children never wear chains of southern greed again. Cups clanked, throats roared. Brienne felt heat flush her cheeks. Oathkeeper lay sheathed by her chair, its lion pommel gleaming in firelight. Yet the blade felt northern now, baptized in snow and wolf blood, sworn to new service. Later, under swirling stars, Brienne walked alone along the battlements. Snowflakes kissed lips. She looked east across frozen leagues toward the Vale. Tarth beyond seas, lives she once failed. Somewhere in that vastness, promises unkept rested easier because tonight one had found home. The night air carried distant music, pipes and drums, and above, the aurora flickered green ribbons like banners of an unseen realm. Sansa joined her, cloak snapping. Cold? Comfortably so, Brienne said. Sansa rested forearms on stone. Tomorrow letters ride to every house. They'll say Winterfell stands. They'll say the wolf howls. And the lion watches her back, Brienne teased. Sansa's laugh tinkled like icicles breaking. You are no lion, Brienne of Tarth. You are a tower. They stood side by side. Wind shifted, carrying scent of pine and smoke, of hot springs whispering through cracks. Oaths murmured beneath. The old kings and crypts, the mothers lost in river murk, voices of winter and dawn. Brienne whispered into the stillness, unsure if Sansa heard. "I will not fail again." Sansa answered without turning. "You never did." Snow drifted, slow and silent, as if the sky laid down feathers to cushion weary souls. Somewhere wolves sang, haunting, mournful, triumphant, echoing off stones reborn. Winterfell listened, and for the first time in years, its heart beat in time with its people, pulsing warm against the coming storm. And high on the ramparts beneath the endless night, two figures watched the world breathe, guardians of a promise wrought in blood and snow, unbowed, unbroken, awaiting the dawn to carry them farther still along the long road of stories yet to shape.